Last episode on Quack in the Dark, you heard 4 stories. A couple who discovered someone had secretly been living in their basement. A late night emergency call from a house where no one should have been inside. A man who locked his bedroom door every night, only to realize that someone was still in his house. And the woman who believed her spare key was hidden until someone proved they knew exactly where it was. 4 stories. 2 of them actually happened. 2 of them were complete fiction. Tonight, we find out which is which. Let's start with our first story, the basement light. Emma and Jake thought the basement light was just a wiring issue. It was an old house with a loose switch. Nothing was unusual until they heard footsteps and found a sleeping bag hidden underneath their open window. Stories like this are disturbing because they happen more often than people realize. There's even a term for it. People secretly living inside someone else's home. Attics, basements, crawl spaces, places just out of sight, coming in out at night, staying hidden during the day. In Emma and Jake's case, police confirmed someone had been entering through the basement window. The sleeping bag, the footprints, the movement they heard, all real. But the person responsible was never found. Which means the story of the basement light was true. Story number 2, the late night call. A dispatcher answered a call at 3:07 a.m. There was silence, then breathing, then a whisper. Someone's here. The call is traced to a house, but when police arrive, no one's inside. The homeowner has already died weeks earlier, and the phone was used to make the call was disconnected. Stories like this feel impossible. The homeowner had already died 2 weeks earlier. Jesus. Let's redo that one. Story 2, the late night call. A dispatcher answers a call at 3:07 a.m. There's silence, then breathing, then a whisper. Someone's here. The call is traced to a house. But when police arrive, no one is inside, and the homeowner had died 2 weeks earlier. The phone to make the call was disconnected. Stories like this feel impossible. Calls from empty homes, voices with no source. But in reality, older phone systems can behave in strange ways. Faulty wiring, moisture in the lines, signal interference. In rare cases, a disconnected line can still trigger an emergency call. And the whisper? Human brains are incredibly good at turning static into words, hearing meaning where there may be none. This story was designed to feel real, but it wasn't. The story of the late night call was fiction. And how did we do with story 3? The locked bedroom. Marcus looked at his bedroom door every night. It was routine, a habit, something that made him feel safe. Until the night he woke up and heard someone outside his door. Footsteps were slow, careful, meticulous. Then the sound of the handle turning and eventually the door opening. Just enough for someone to look inside. The next day, police discovered a hidden space inside the house. There were food wrappers, blankets, signs that someone had been living there, moving through the house only at night, waiting until Marcus was asleep. Stories like this are rare, but they are real. In some cases, intruders have been found living inside homes for days or even weeks without being noticed. Listening, watching, learning your routine, waiting for the right moment to move about the house. In Marcus's case, there was no sign of forced entry, which means one thing: whoever had been inside had been there longer than even he realized. The story of the locked bedroom was true. Before we get to the final story reveal, I'd like to ask for a favor. If you're enjoying Quack in the Dark and the Quack in the Dark reveal, wherever you're listening, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, if you could just leave me a follow, a subscription, or a 5-star review. It helps other listeners find this show and enjoy it as well. I really appreciate it. Also, I have a Facebook and Discord that I will link in the bio if you guys are interested. You guys can come, talk with me about the episodes, make your predictions after every episode, and find out how right or wrong you really were. Let's get to the final reveal. Story 4, the spare key. Rachel kept a spare key hidden outside her home as a simple precaution, something that everyone does. But when things started to feel wrong, cabinets left open and the air inside the house was feeling disturbed, she would hear footsteps inside her house. Someone entering quietly, moving through it as if it was their own, and then leaving without being seen. The spare key eventually disappeared even after she moved it, and whoever had been entering was never found. Stories like this tap into something very real: the fear of someone having access to your home without your consent, permission, or knowledge. But in this case, this story was carefully constructed. The timing, the repeated entries, the disappearance of the key, all designed to build tension. But not based on a confirmed case. The story of the spare key was fiction. So tonight, the true stories were the basement light and the locked bedroom. The stories that were fiction were the late night call and the spare key. There's something unsettling about ghosts. The unknown, the unexplained, and sometimes the truth is worse. Because in both true stories tonight, there were no spirits or any paranormal explanations. Just people, hidden, patient, living in places they shouldn't be, watching and waiting. So the next time you hear something in your house at night, a quiet step, a door shifting slightly, or something just moving out of sight, you might want to check, because sometimes the things you're afraid of are real. I'm Quackster, and this has been Quack in the Dark. Sleep carefully, because sometimes the stories are listening too.